Okay, is like median. So one thing that I wanted to focus on during this session is the Delta Airlines problem and the Kentucky Derby problem that you guys have in your homework. And that requires you to look at a bunch of data and like kind of figure out what the mean and the median are. So I know this question, like these questions can be like pretty tricky. So what I kind of wanted to do was break it up into parts. So the first part is just like understanding like what a median is. So just in the like chat, can someone like tell me what a median is? Okay, so yeah, the median is like kind of the middle number of all your numbers sorted. So what I kind of want you guys to do now is put all the like numbers in this question. Like there's 3 different sets of numbers, so find the median of each set of the numbers, and then once you do, like just put your answer into the chat. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna click on the row, I'm gonna data, and then the A to Z filter, smallest to largest. I'm gonna click that and that'll sort all my data. Then what I can do is just do equals median. And if I select all this and I click enter, I get 9, which is what most of you got. So then we do the same thing with the other problems. We sort all of the values, and then we'll just do equals median, select all the data, click enter, and we get 19.5. And then for the last one, we do median, select all the data, and get 250. Is kind of the median of all your class values. So what I want you guys to do now is find the midpoint of these values. And then once you do, like, just put the answers in the chat, like find the median when you were solving for it. Or how did you find the midpoint? So someone said like you take the lower limit and the upper limit and divide by 2. So if we were to go to the question and see, so they said take the lower limit and add that to the upper limit and then divide by 2, which would be correct. So for the first one, if we did that in Excel, you get equals 12 plus 17 divided by 2, you get 14.5, which most of you got. And then if we just do it again, for example, with the next one, it was 18 plus 23 divided by 2, you get 20.5, which most of you got again. So yeah, you just keep doing that with each class, which most of you did, and you got the midpoints. So the midpoints, like most of you got, were 14.5 for the first one, 20.5 for the next one, 26.5, and then 32.5, which is correct. So good job. So the next thing I wanted to talk about with this question is, how do you find standard deviation? So does anyone kind of know what standard deviation is? Yeah, someone said standard deviation is how much of a distance there is between the median and like 60% of the values, which is just right. That's like the empirical rule if you remember from class. Does anyone like know the formula for finding standard deviation? Like not on Excel? This equation is going to be really useful. The standard deviation you can find by taking the sum of all the frequencies times the midpoints squared minus the number of values you have in your data times the mean squared all over the number of data you have minus 1, and then you square root that whole thing. Because does anyone know why we're trying to square root it? Because we're solving for x, or not s, we're solving for s, and to isolate s, we have to square root both sides. So what I want you guys to do is, with this data on the side, I want you to put it into Excel and then solve for the standard. Put all my values into Excel. And do you remember if we need to do deviation? And I'm going to do this first number all the way to the last one. And I got 5.43, which is what most of you also got. So now I want you to find, for practice, all of the midpoints in this data set. And then once you have the midpoints, you should get 5 different midpoints. Once you get the midpoints, I want you to put your answers in the chat. How we did that. So for the first midpoint, what we're going to do is we're going to take the limits, which were 2,500 and 0. We're going to add them together and divide by 2. We get 1,250. And then we're going to do that with the next class, which is 5,000 and 2,500. So we're going to do 5,000 plus 2,500 divided by 2. And then we're going to do the next one, which is 7,500 plus 5,000 divided by 2. Oh, no, it's 10,000, so sorry. 10,000 divided by 2, and then oh, I skipped one. You're right. So I'm going to say skipped one, which is 5,000 plus 7,500, which is 6,000. And then I'm going to say the next one, which is 7,500 plus 10,000 divided by 2. And then the last class, which is 10,000 plus divided by 2. These should be your midpoints, which most of you got. The next thing we're going to do is find the mean from the frequency table. So does anyone know kind of how to find the mean? Know how to find the mean from... So to find the mean from a frequency table, what you want to do is multiply each class by their frequency and divide by the total number of frequencies. So in this question, what would be the class? Someone said the score, which would be correct. The score is your class, and then you would multiply it by the frequency. Does anyone know how to find the total frequency? So yeah, someone said add up all the frequencies, which is correct. So now I'm going to just give you guys some time to work on this problem by yourselves, and then try and find the mean and let me know. So I'm just going to walk you through what I did in Excel. So what I did was I multiplied each frequency by I multiplied each class by their frequency. And so each one is the frequency times the class. And then this on column N is the frequency. So to find the mean, what I did was took the sum of all the classes times the frequencies, and I found the sum of all the frequencies. And then now that I've found this answer, I can just take all the frequencies, or frequencies times the class, and then divide it by the total number of frequencies, and I get 14.466 as my answer. Move on to the next question, which is kind of building on what we've worked on in the past few, what I got, and compare it to my answers. That's not what I wanted to do. So sorry. Right. So I'm seeing that for the midpoints, most of you are getting some answers. Like, hopefully these midpoints should be pretty easy to find, but I'm seeing like 25, 75, which is good. So I'm just gonna go over to my Excel file, show you what I did. So this side is all my midpoints, which are 25, 75, 125, 175, and 225. And then these are all my frequencies. So what I did to first complete the chart is I found the sum of all the frequencies, which I got 55. And then the next thing that the question asked us to do was find each midpoint times their frequency. So I'll do midpoint. No, sorry. I'm going to do midpoint multiplied by frequency. And when I click enter, I'll get 175. And what I can do to find the rest of them, I can just take this corner and drag it down, and that'll give me the midpoint times the frequency for the rest of my values, which is a fun and fast way to find midpoints and frequencies. Then the next thing that it asked us to find was the sum of all the midpoints and frequencies. So I can do equals sum and select all these values and click enter, and I get 7,175. And that should be everything that the question asks for right here. Yeah. And then now the next thing that I wanted to do is use the data that we found in our completed chart now to find the mean and the standard deviation. This is the formula for standard deviation, and most of you remember mean from a couple slides ago when we practiced that. So I'll just give you a little bit of time to solve this for the standard deviation and the mean, and then once you have your answer, just put it into the chat. I'll file and show you what I did. So to find the mean, what I did was I said equals midpoint frequency divided by total number of frequencies. And I should get 135.377 for my mean. And does anyone know what this number 53 is? Yeah, so someone said that's our n. So now what every number that I need to complete this equation, I have the sum of all my frequencies times my midpoints. All I need to do now is just square my midpoints. And then I have my n, I have my mean, and now all I have to do is just plug in my numbers and solve. So what I'm gonna do first is find the square of each midpoint that I have. I'm gonna say equals this one. I'll get 6. And all I have to do is just drag it down, and that'll give me the square of all my midpoints. And this should go over here too. And I am going to multiply. If we go back to our PowerPoint, we have to multiply each frequency by its midpoint squared. So I can do that in Excel really easy. Keep moving this chart. So I will do equals frequency times midpoint squared, click enter, and then drag this number all the way down. Frequency midpoint squared. And then it asks me for the sum of this. I'm going to find the sum of all these numbers. Enter. So that's our first number, super big. And then the next part of the question or the formula is asking for n times our mean squared. So we have our n, 53, times our mean squared. So I can just do mean squared. That's my mean squared. And I can multiply that by our n. So that's our next number. Yeah. And then the last thing that it asked us to do is divide by our total number minus 1, which is 52. So now if we put everything into our formula, divide this number by this, we'll get 4,457, but we can't stop there because that only gives us s squared. So to find s, we have to square root the problem. So if I go back to my Excel, I'll do square root this number, and I should get 66.76 as my standard deviation. So yeah, a lot of you were saying in the chat if it should be like a really big number. The reason you're getting a really big number is because you're stopping kind of in the almost at the end of the problem, but like you're not quite there. So just remember to square root and you'll get your standard deviation. So that's all I kind of wanted to talk about today in this session. Hopefully this helps you like have a better time doing the Delta Airlines problem and the Kentucky Derby problem, because it's very similar to what we just did. Just one thing to remember is like break it down into steps, like first find the midpoint, then find the mean and the standard deviations, like everything that we did in kind of the last practice problem to complete to complete this table. So yeah, see you next class, and my next session is Tuesday at 2 and Wednesday at 3. But I hope to see you there, and bye.